You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Okay, we have another stupid viral trend. And we have, sadly, another teenager who injured themselves. An Alabama teenager and his family are now warning everybody of another viral social media trend after he suffered third-degree burns, which we now call full-thickness burns. Why? Because he microwaved a toy, and the toy exploded. Eli Blackman, now 13 years old, but he was 11 years old when he saw videos on TikTok showing people putting the NeeDoh squishy toys in the microwave in order to soften them. NeeDoh is a sensory toy like a stress ball, and it's described on the company's website. So dumb. I don't know why people are doing this. As a gratifying, super soft, super stretchy dough-filled groovy glob. And he said he thought it was harmless because he saw an adult do it without any consequence. So he says, at what they told Fox News, quote, "When I took it out, my older sister held it for a few minutes. Then I was playing with it. As soon as I squeezed it, it burst, and the hot gel exploded onto my neck, chest, and hands." Poor kid, adorable kid, now with severe disfiguring burns. The hot gel that squeezed out caused what they call third-degree burns, which is the full thickness. They've kind of gotten away from the first-degree, second-degree, third-degree terminology. I liked that terminology, to be honest, because we also had fourth-degree burns that would go even beyond. So first-degree is like a sunburn, where you get some basic redness. Second-degree burn is where you get blisters, even though some sunburns could be second-degree, but you get like blistering. Third-degree is where it goes deeper and it could kill the nerves, where some of these burns, they don't hurt, but they go deeper, and the fourth degree could go down to the bones. But he said, at first I was feeling frantic because I wasn't sure what was going on, and he was screaming and not communicating. Oh, that's what the mom said. The mom said, my husband is a fire medic, and I work in emergency call taking, so I had a little knowledge of how serious it was. And she said she still panicked. She was not aware of this trend before her child injured himself. She said, if I was aware, we would have had a conversation about not doing it. That's a very nice way of putting it. We would have had a conversation of not doing it. But that explains why, we're in this predicament that we're in, where parents don't know what their kids are watching. So the child said, I thought I was going to die. I kept telling my parents I don't want to die. I'm sorry. And that I loved him. He was transported by ambulance to the emergency department. And then later sent to the burn unit for wound care and debridement. With how severe the burn was, they would typically recommend skin grafts, but they wouldn't consider it for him because of the risks to his airway, according to his mom. Because, again, it got his neck, chest. So he had to go to the burn unit every week for about 4 months. Doctors would have to remove the dead skin and perform wound care. So the reason why we get burn, so you go to burn care if you sustain a burn to the hands, the feet, the face, the genitalia, or a large area of your body. And the reason why we need burn care, because people will call up telemedicine and say, well, just give me an antibiotic. Because it's more than that. If your skin got damaged or killed, right, your body is going to try to slough that off. And your body can't heal if there's damaged skin. And the damaged skin can become infected. So even if you take an oral antibiotic for 7 days, your damaged skin, if it doesn't get removed or cared for properly, you could fester for months and never heal. So we get burn care involved immediately. From what I understand, he did not take any pain medicines or numbing, but the follow-up appointments were fairly painful. Once the wound started to heal and the scarring began, they had to do chemical burns because he was developing a lot of granulation tissue. Granulation tissue is where the skin doesn't heal like normal skin, but there's other tissue that it's trying to use to form a barrier, because your skin is your largest organ of your body. And the purpose of the skin is to provide a barrier to keep things in and to keep things out. And so your skin wants to protect your body. If you have an open area of your skin, you start to dry out. And so it doesn't want you to lose your fluids. So that's why also in burn care, if we have a severe burn, we're giving you IV fluids, because you could be evaporating a lot of your fluids. Your skin barrier is so important. And so he developed then a rash from the bandages. Then he got a staph infection, and then the burn was pulling fluids from his body, and he started to have GI issues. And he's a jiu-jitsu athlete. As a result, he missed months of training and competing during the injury. Family has faced thousands of dollars of hospital bills, doctor bills, wound supplies. And so now they are speaking to other families to tell people not to do it. If you purchase these types of toys, please just mention this trend and not to do it. Even if they don't have social media, kids in school are hearing it from other kids. So there still has to be scar care on this child. It's been 2 years since the injury. Stretches, moisturize the area. And the child is going to be lifelong having issues just because of something stupid. Now, I see a lot of burns because and many of them are adult burns because they're cooking something and something splatters. I make the mistake of having too much fluid in the pot, and so when it boils, it rises a few inches, and I have to remember that. I also microwave things, and I forget how hot the microwave does things. Just have some basic, treat the microwave like an oven. It's a microwave oven. Use your mitts. Understand that things are going to spill. And they could spill on you. If you put a bowl into the microwave and it has some liquid or melted butter, that could spill and scald. So wear oven mitts. Just be prepared and understand that if you drop something or splash something, and make sure your kids aren't behind you going, Mommy, let me see, or Daddy, let me see. And then, if you do have kids, tell them that there's some real stupid stuff. And what I did with my kids is I would show them pictures. I showed them pictures of STDs. I showed them pictures of burns. I showed them pictures of injuries. And I said, this is what happens when you're not careful. So you got to be careful. And even if it's graphic, something like that might stick with them and save their life. 1-877-Doc-Dolly.
Hi, everyone. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up. Because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. We'll help you find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. If you were hurt in a car accident, truck accident, motorcycle accident, rideshare accident, slip and fall, or any other type of accident, call our 24/7 hotline now and let us help you find out how much your case is potentially worth. Call 800-978-6800. That's 800-978-6800. 800-978-6800. I'm Gina Hart, here with spokesman Jack Mercer. So Jack, tell our listeners who should give us a call right now.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me join you here in the studio. It's always great to answer the listeners' questions. Now, as far as who should call in, anyone who's been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, give us a call right now. The call is free, the consultation is free, and with our no-fee guarantee, you pay nothing unless we win you money.
That's great advice. Thanks, Jack. And is it true that the Legal Help Center is open 24/7?
That's right, Gina. We're open anytime you need us, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident of any kind, call now and let us help you find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-978-6800. That's 800-978-6800. 800-978-6800. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. Not available in California. May not be available in all states.
back at the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly. Oh, my nose. I'm still allergies. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Dr. spelled out. Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show. And on YouTube, click like and subscribe. Also on Instagram. Yes, we're going to start a TikTok. I'm not looking forward to that, but I'm so busy. But yes, I will start doing more on TikTok. But definitely not any of those stupid viral trends. So Cyclospora expanding. I think there's over 5,000 cases of this intestinal parasite that's treated by antibiotics because the antibiotics stop its, I believe, its metabolism. So it's interesting how antibiotics have an effect on parasites. But the Cyclospora cayetanensis, right? Is that? Yeah. Genus and species has sickened more than 5,000 people. Nobody has died. Right? We get Cyclospora outbreaks all the time. But there's a lot going on right now. I think Michigan is being hit the hardest. I think they have at least half the cases. And so we're being told that the investigators, epidemiologists, are kind of looking at some national possible exposures. And so Yum Brands, who do Taco Bell, is part of the investigation. Not saying Taco Bell is implicated in this. No direct link. But Taco Tuesday and all the other, taco specials. My kids love Taco Bell. I'm not a big Taco Bell fan. I kind of like making my own. I like going to Roberto's or Rubio's, and I make my own arroz con pollo kind of thing. I like just give me red, like the chicken, rice, and cheese or whatever. But if Taco Bell could do that, I'm sure I would like it. But they're concerned that maybe because produce can carry Cyclospora, maybe it could be the lettuce. No link to Taco Bell. But you will see in the news that multiple restaurants, including Taco Bell, are there. And that's what they do. I mean, that isn't anything new. So I don't want people to panic. With the Cyclospora, they say you get it by oral fecal route, which means you're putting something in your mouth from somebody's contaminated intestinal excrement. Now, that's very frightening to think that could happen. And then you're thinking to yourself, have 5,000 people eaten somebody else's poop? If the bacteria starts that way and then it spreads, and the lettuce or the vegetable or the fruit isn't cleaned well, and remember, there's lots of little crevices. I mean, if you look at a little raspberry, there's a lot of little surface area because of the little beads, or shredded lettuce. So I don't really like a lot of shredded things like cheese, shredded cheese, for example. I don't like shredded cheese because in order to keep that cheese gummed up, there's preservatives and chemicals and stuff. And so shredded cheese, you now increase the surface area. Rather than you eating a small block of cheese, you now have all these little pieces with all sorts of, and I get it. When I like to make my Mexican dishes, I like, and Latino foods, I really, really love, putting the different cheeses and the, and the mixture of it, but there's more chemicals on those. So I grate my cheese now because I think it's safer. So shredded lettuce, as opposed to a nice big leaf, has multiple more opportunities for something to be on it. Incubation period for the Cyclospora could be up to 2 weeks. Most often you get sick within a week if you're exposed, but it could be 2 weeks. If you remember the listeria outbreak that actually killed people and caused miscarriages, that I think had an incubation period of almost 6 weeks. I don't even remember what I ate yesterday morning, let alone a week ago, or so that's why also it takes, people are like, why aren't people figuring this out? Where did it come from? So it's actually figure outable. It's not as difficult as you think, but it is time consuming because we need people to be forthcoming and remember what they ate and where they ate. So we have to ask the right questions. And if somebody says, well, yeah, I had my mother-in-law's cooking, that doesn't help us too much. And you're like, well, what did your mother-in-law use? I don't know. I don't cook. I don't know. But if somebody's like, well, yeah, I went here to, this fast food or this fast food or this fast food, sometimes they could then piece it together. Another issue we're having is many people are not going in to get tested. So if you think you have Cyclospora, I've been noticing people are calling the telemedicine company saying, I have Cyclospora, give me an antibiotic. Now, the antibiotic they use for the parasite Cyclospora is sulfa, trimethoprim-sulfamethoxazole, which is Bactrim. If you're allergic to sulfa like me, there are other antibiotics like Cipro, not as effective because that Bactrim, as I said, it really works to interfere. I think it affects the mitochondria. Hold on one second. I talked about this the other day, but now I forgot. So hold on a second. Okay. Bactrim, cause of action. I am not using ChatGPT. I am using Google for this on Cyclospora. I talked about this the other day, but I want to give you the exact thing. It's the folate. That's right. It prevents the parasite's metabolism. I was right about that, but why? It doesn't allow the parasite to make folate. And if the parasite doesn't make folate, it can't live. That's how an antibiotic is able to attack a parasite. We also are looking into why people with viruses like bronchitis, why they say they feel better with an antibiotic. Because we think that maybe the antibiotic isn't necessarily attacking the bacteria, but it's causing something that's happening and affecting the virus. But problem is, we've got to be really, really careful with antibiotic overuse. And that's a concern. I know a lot of public health officials now because everybody and their mother wants to take antibiotics because they think they have the Cyclospora. The key antibiotic is this trimethoprim-sulfamethoxazole or Bactrim. And if you're allergic to sulfa, like I am, there's a couple other options, not as effective, but there are a couple other options. You will not be able to get treated online for the most part. Why? Because if it's a reportable illness, the CDC needs to know about it. The CDC needs to know who has it. And if we are going to say you have something like that and treat you, we have to have confirmation, like a test being done. So for those individuals who think they have Cyclospora, we usually recommend to go in and get tested. Now, it doesn't mean you have to drop your pants in the middle of the room and leave a stool sample in the middle of the doctor's waiting room. They can give you a container to take home. Now, for those of you going, Dr. Dahlia, I don't want to do that. It's easier to just get an antibiotic. Why don't I just, go down to Mexico, get an antibiotic, and then come right back? Because what if it's not Cyclospora? What if your diarrhea is E. coli? What if it's salmonella? What if it's a virus? What if it's inflammatory bowel disease? So if you come up negative for Cyclospora, then we start to wonder, well, is it something else? And we're having a lot of people where their bowels are pretty messed up. It could be from their Ozempic or Mounjaro use. It could be from the way they're eating. In fact, there's studies looking at constipation where constipation might not only be diet related and sitting for long periods of time. It could be the way your brain communicates with your bowels. And for those of us who have struggled with irritable bowel, we know that we got to get in the right mindset to be able to do what we got to do. Not pretty fun. I've kind of given you guys a blow by blow before, and we'll do it again. But sometimes you really got to get into the right mindset. And one way to do that is reading a book or doing something else on the potty. You don't want to sit too long because you don't want to prolapse your rectum. But going back to diarrhea, if you have bloating, watery diarrhea, pain, get yourself checked out. Another thing we don't want to mix it up with is Giardia. Giardia is another parasite that causes watery diarrhea and bloating and abdominal pain. If people are out there camping and drinking river water or swimming in the lake and ingesting that, you could be getting Giardia. So we definitely want to make sure that you're being careful with that. Let me just really quickly make sure I've given you guys everything on this. Again, do not panic about Taco Bell. They could say it's part of the probe. Let me give credit due. This is Seeking Alpha. That's the source. They say as part of the probe, officials are examining possible restaurant exposures, including the Yum brand fast food chain Taco Bell. Some locations have already removed ingredients such as lettuce and cilantro from their menus following recall notices, but no direct link has confirmed yet. They say shares of Yum brand slipped a little bit in early trading. Again, nobody is saying they're the cause. But the cyclosporiasis cases typically increase between May and August. and they are noticing cases are climbing. They are recommending that you do wash your produce thoroughly, practice good hygiene. Always tell people to wash your hands after they go potty. Don't just do this. That's not going to work. And just, be aware of your body and your body's changes. But food poisoning always goes up in the summer because people are going to cookouts. They're eating 3-hour-old potato salad that was sitting outside in the sun. People's food is not staying cold in the car when they're driving it home. There's a whole bunch of issues we're seeing, as opposed to your winter time where everything is hot and warm and comfort food. This is, I don't want people to panic, but I didn't panic that much about this because we always see food-borne illnesses rise. However, we are seeing a lot more cases of this. And if there is a common link, we need to find that pretty quickly. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
And we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, air conditioning saves lives. Air conditioning is a must. We are seeing all across the globe, maybe the southern hemisphere, which is kind of going through winter right now, but okay, all across the northern hemisphere and around the equator, it's hot. It's hot. Okay, that's what happens during the summer. And people die from heat illness. And we need to take better care of our fellow brethren and sisters when it pertains to heat illness, and build our cities better and have better infrastructure in our apartments. But as I've said before, science and AI are going to choose certain campaigns and try to steer us towards those campaigns. And one big campaign is to protect the environment. Now, it's very important. I work for the EPA, but I do not want to protect the environment if it means people die to protect the environment. And you're going to keep seeing this message. One of my sons said that they're calling this movement extinctionism, where and we're not fans of it by any means, but where the world would be a better place with fewer people. And so if you Google and you AI about air conditioning, they're like, it's bad. It's bad for the environment. Okay, it saves lives. It's hot outside. There's heat illness. We're not withstanding our temperatures as much because we're always indoors. So, I grew up in Las Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember getting up to like 120 degrees. It was hot in Phoenix. But you played outside, you built up a resilience. My mom grew up during the swamp cooler days. They couldn't afford air conditioning. They had a place to live that had a swamp cooler, and they made it work. That's just, we were more resilient. Now, because we're in air conditioning and we're around our computers, we go outside and we're like, oh, I actually start to feel sick. when I'm out in the heat. I used to not. Now, it could be because I'm older. Again, I am a little older than I was, but we're also less resilient. So we don't want people dying. We don't want to see our homeless, individuals suffer, freeze to death, or fall to heat illness. So we are recommending air conditioning, but scientists are like, use it as a last resort. So you're going to start to see, as we have more campaigns to protect our environment they're going to be going after air conditioning. Why? Well, because they're concerned about the air conditioning's electricity use, which I find ironic, being that for years I said, well, be careful with EVs being our savior as it pertains to the climate and climate change, because that is taxing our electrical system and that hurts the environment. So I found that kind of ironic, hypocritical. So according to Popular Mechanics, they say that in the very worst situations, air conditioners can save lives, but the electricity-hungry nature is exacerbating climate change. But aren't we doing... So electricity is okay for electric vehicles, but not for your air conditioning. That's confusing to me. They say a new study suggests that a combination of technologies can decrease AC demand by up to 80% and drop ambient temperatures by more than 4 degrees Celsius. That is nice, and I am for advancements. But when it's 111 and you drop the temperatures down to 107, I'm grateful, but I'm probably not going to notice it too much. So we're going to have to do a little bit better job than 4 degrees. They say the study argues that this should be a last-ditch cooling method rather than the go-to option. They say the current climate crisis is making this urgent. They say for more than a century, scientists have known that burning coal warms the planet, but the finite energy-dense research was too convenient a fuel to pass up. Some of the first cars to ever hit the road were clean electric cars, but cars with internal combustion images were more convenient to mass produce. And yes, they're not wrong about that. Remember I told you the 1920s, we had an electric car. But it wasn't practical. It wasn't easy for people to do. And that's kind of the same problem we're having with electric vehicles now. When I lived in LA, I lived in apartments. And I would have to find any parking on Ventura Boulevard I could, or if I could find a dirt lot somewhere to leave my car. If there's no outlets along the street where your apartment complex is, you're not going to be able to charge your car. It's not very practical. It's very good for the rich who have garages where they could park. But if the average person does not live in a house with a garage, you're going to have to figure out how to do in apartments. And apartments will usually only give you one parking space per apartment. And then you can there's a couple free spaces that you have to race to get to. But if you have if you have multiple cars in your family, if you have, because you have a mom and a dad or whatever that have to go, or partners that have different jobs, that's not going to be very easy. They say that the planet continues to inch past the 1.5 degree Celsius increase in global temperature. They say the threshold originally reported by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is critical to avoiding catastrophic climate impacts. According to the International Energy Agency, air conditioners and electric fans already account for 10% of global electricity consumption. And that number is only expected to rise as summers reach sweltering temperatures around the world. So I got an idea then. If we want to save on that 10%, maybe lay off the electric vehicle mandates. All right. Now, I know people are saying, Dr. Dahlia, these fossil fuels are bad. They are. You're not lying. But we are being told that our electricity consumption is worsening our environment. So we're going to have to come up with something. We're going to have to do, if it's accelerating the problem, then we need to pick the lesser of two evils. I like electric vehicles. Just, I don't think our grids and I don't think our climate is ready for that. This new study published in the journal Nature Reviews Clean Technology argues that air conditioners should be the last ditch. If you have no other option to stay cool, at the last ditch effort, use the air conditioning. I don't think that's right. And another issue you also have to remember is they tell you to not shut your air conditioning off and then go up and down. But they say try to keep a baseline because it uses less energy when you only have to go up and down a few degrees than if you're going from 0 to 90. So if I shut off my air conditioning, the house is probably going to be about 98 degrees. And then if I'm pumping and pumping and pumping that air conditioning to try to get the temperature to 78, that's going to take more energy than if I left the air conditioning roughly at 82. And then they got to be careful with this, because if somebody's reading this going, oh my gosh, I don't want the climate to fall apart because of my air conditioning in my home, I need to shut it off when I'm gone, they could actually be doing worse. So listen, the fact that scientists want to decrease reliance on air conditioners, having smarter ventilations, evaporative systems, which means they might be going back to these evaporative coolers, using more shading, reflective material, smarter ventilation, I think it's very, very good. I think it's cool. And I want us to, I think there is a way to make our energy expenditures more efficient, such as operating your washing machine and dryer, at the later times of the day. Why use an electric dryer? If it's 100 degrees outside, dry your clothes outside. I think we should be energy savvy. But if you're kind of making the comment that make the argument that air conditioners are bad, people can die. You got to be really, really careful with that, unless that's the main goal. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out. And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So one thing President Donald Trump is doing, which I think is smart, is the making sure that J.D. Vance is in the public eye a lot and playing large roles, unlike what Biden did with Kamala Harris being the border czar, and then the border being an absolute cluster in a seventh. That was Biden's way of screwing her over, or she really didn't want to go down there and do what needed to get done. Who knows? But it was a mess. And so Trump knows that if he wants his legacy to continue, because he didn't get along that well with Mike Pence, and he needed Mike Pence, to win. And I like Mike Pence, a good guy, but different, kind of campaign than Donald Trump. But one thing that Trump really was frustrated with is that a lot of the things he accomplished and his legacy got reversed, rewritten very quickly, even on the internet and in history books, rewritten. And he wants to make sure that that can't happen, that his legacy can't be destroyed. That's why he's doing the Trump accounts. It's very hard for people to say Trump didn't do anything. It didn't help them out from a monetary standpoint when their kid has a retirement account, college account or retirement account that they have access to. I think that's a brilliant idea. Secure border. Most Americans wanted that. But some people are going to claim that caused chaos as it pertained to ICE. Although if you look at every other country, Japan, Canada, their deportation rules are even more stricter than ours. So they're it just that's perception, and it was a problem that should have never existed that happened under Biden's campaign. But what Trump is doing is making sure that J.D. Vance on these huge changes as it pertains to waste, fraud, and abuse, and as it pertains to Ukraine, the Ukraine-Russia war, and Middle East and Iran's nuclear capabilities, that Vance's face is nearby and or attached to this as well, so that when he runs, he has a better chance of winning. I think Trump knows that his popularity does not necessarily extend to who follows him. Marco Rubio can be also very, very popular. Marco Rubio has impressed the hell. He's always been impressive. I've always been a huge fan of Marco Rubio. And he can go a long, long way for the Republican Party. But all eyes are on not only the midterms, but what's happening in 2028. And the Democrats understand that they cannot do what they did in the last election where Biden should have never run, and then they had to swap Biden out for Kamala Harris, and they didn't have time to teach her how to stop cackling and teach her about what the actual issues are, and she failed miserably. And I would never have used Kamala Harris because she failed in the Democratic primary. She wasn't popular. You got to come up with somebody more popular. So, interestingly, though, she's still ranking high in the polls. J.D. Vance, in a hypothetical poll, actually this is analytics, one of the latest polls, is actually trailing just a touch with Vice President Kamala Harris. He is, however, beating Governor Newsom and Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So this anticipation of the 2028 election is starting to make the Democrats, do some research, which they didn't do with Graham Plattner, and they obviously didn't do with Kamala Harris, to, look at, what would be the most competitive landscape against the Republicans. The poll shows Vance with 42.1% of the potential vote compared to Harris's 48.5%. 9.4%, not sure. The survey shows when you put Vance head-to-head against Newsom, Vance has 44.6% of the vote compared to Newsom's 41%. 14.3%, unsure. And I think when you look at Ocasio-Cortez, the numbers, let me find that. I thought I saw that number, unless they don't have that number for Ocasio-Cortez. 45% to 37.6%. So Ocasio-Cortez would be trailing Newsom, which means people might not like as much the Democratic Socialist from as a whole, might not think that's the safest way to go. And Newsom kind of has, his own issues, especially with how California has been. It's funny, I saw a meme where the bear on the California flag is now on the Texas flag because even the bear moved to Texas. So Newsom has his own issues. Also, Newsom has not been very pro-Israel in some of his statements. And you got a huge Jewish population and Israeli population in California, not smartest way to go. Plus, you have a lot of religious people that don't want Israel to fall, with all these calls for the end to Israel. So Newsom has to really figure things out too, which it doesn't look like he's prepared yet also. But the poll was small. It looked at 891 voters in the U.S. from January 1st to January 7th, had a margin of error of 3.3%. They even looked at Secretary of State Marco Rubio and how he would do against Newsom, Harris, and Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro. Newsom leads Rubio in the hypothetical race, 41-39. Not close, with 18.4% unsure. Rubio would hold a slight lead over Shapiro with 35.9% versus 35.3%. Harris narrowly ahead of Rubio, 43.4% to 43.1%. Another poll by looking at CNN shows Newsom advance leading at the top of the ticket, even over Kamala Harris. So it's interesting because these polls, how many times have we seen polls where they said Kamala Harris, it was going to be a landslide against Trump? Or Hillary Clinton, it was going to be a landslide against Trump. I really take these polls with a grain of salt. However, what I think these polls are effective at doing, if they're a larger poll, is showing if you see the differences between the primary candidates within the party. If you see somebody having such an extensive lead, the problem you have with these polls is when somebody calls up saying, "Are you going to vote for J.D. Vance or Governor Newsom?" I say none of your damn business, because it's none of their business, right? But if somebody says, who do you prefer with the Democratic side? Do you prefer Josh Shapiro? Do you prefer Governor Newsom? I'm like, I like, Josh Shapiro. I think he could go farther. And so I think you get a little bit more statistically significant or significance or a little bit more accuracy of people's feelings if it's within the party, which I think is important. And I think because Democrats are trying to figure out how not to make another grand platinum mistake. As I said, the big issue that the Democrats are having is these Democratic socialists want to look like the grassroots. They're coming from your next door neighbor, your county, community members, and they could now, represent you. On the other end, which I kind of like. I like more grassroots. However, these polished politicians have been through the mill with the skeletons in the closet and their any previous Nazi tattoos and all the other stuff that Kamala Harris, they're probably not going to get a lot of surprises. They're probably not going to get this person attacked this person molested this person. They're probably not going to get that from a Kamala Harris. However, Kamala Harris lost. People didn't like her. And I think a lot of Democrats were kind of hoping that Governor Gavin Newsom would do well. Governor Shapiro could do really, really well, but now there's this all this anti-Jewish sentiment. So the Democrats are in a pickle, and Ocasio-Cortez is just too far left. And they don't think she's likable. So they're struggling. And not surprising. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, Then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.